Olga Topchaya is the founder and CEO of Lapis AI Consults, where she helps mid-sized businesses cut wasted time and costs with custom AI assistants and integrated solutions that actually ship, scale, and deliver measurable impact. With more than a decade in marketing and product, she brings a business-first perspective to AI, turning $15 tickets into pennies and freeing teams from busy work that slows growth. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm just super fascinated by AI, and for lots of reasons, but one of the main ones is there's a famous quote that goes, "Technology is the answer. What was the question?" And I feel we're getting to a stage where replace the word technology with AI. AI is the answer. But what's the question? And I think a lot of CEOs rush to, well, we'll just use AI without any meaning or knowledge of what that actually feels like. So I just wanted to sort of start off, if it's okay, just to take you back a little bit before we start in the main dialogue and understand a bit about your background, what sort of person you were in your formative years. Were you always entrepreneurial? Would your teachers and peers be surprised what you're doing today?
Hi. Yes, I'm actually really happy that you asked me that question because I had not thought about this until I read your notes that you had sent me ahead of the call. So it really did get me thinking, and the answer is yes, I was. When I was in like elementary school, I sold stickers to my neighbor. So my grandpa would buy me stickers, and then we would like essentially just like do a markup and then sell them. That did not go very well with the neighbor's parents, but I was like, oh, I could sell them. And then when I was in junior high school, I would do regular garage sales because I saw garage sales around the neighborhood, and I'm like, oh, I have stuff that I could get rid of. Like, I'll make money off this, and why not? Why throw it out? So I would like harass my parents. Hey, when can we have a garage sale? When can we have a garage sale? And then when I was in college, I started doing tutoring for people on writing papers.
Mhm.
Then in my eventually when I was already in my marketing career, I did consulting for some time. So my background is actually in marketing and product. And this is something that I was doing for well over 10 years before starting my own company. And during that time period, I did consulting. I took a break from corporate for a little while, and I was doing consulting. So the short answer of it is that yes, I was always entrepreneurial, although I had not always thought of myself as
Mm.
entrepreneurial because for most of my career, I had been in corporate.
Mhm. So where and how did you come up with the idea for Lapis AI Consults, and what were the problems you were hoping to solve with the business?
Yeah, so Lapis was a journey, very
Mhm.
interesting journey. Was certainly not just like a plan or an idea that came. Um, I so back in 2022, before the ChatGPT boom, I went on parental leave, and as I mentioned, I was in marketing and product, and I was in tech for some time at that point. About over 6 years, I was in tech, and as I was getting ready to come back, it's when we hit like the worst tech recession. So this is people who are not in tech don't really know this because they weren't impacted at all. We had like a great economy in the US.
Yeah.
Um, but people in tech remember this very much because post COVID, companies overhired, right? So Google, Facebook, like all these companies, just like
Yeah.
massive
Mhm.
layoffs, right? And so nobody is hiring just as I'm like getting ready to come back. And I'm thinking, all right, well, instead of sending out my resume into a void and crying myself to sleep every night, I'm going to take a step back, hang out with my baby, and reassess my career and see, what do I do next? And during this time, I literally stumbled upon what was then called the OpenAI Playground. Right now, it's now the OpenAI platform
Mhm.
for developers. But back then, it was called the Playground. ChatGPT did not exist at that time. The dominant model back then was DaVinci 3. I think it had just come out. And I thought, this is incredible. Why does nobody know about this? Why is nobody talking about this? Where's the media? Where are the developers? Where are the businesses? Like, this is incredible. This thing just like writes stuff. What? And I said, I got to get into this. I need to figure out what is this technology. And I decided, all right, where do I go? Where do I start? I'm not a developer. Like, my background is in marketing and in product. So, I just started looking at whatever resources I could find, talking to anyone I could get my hands on, sitting on like dark corners of the Discord server. Reaching out to influencers, like YouTube influencers that I could find. It's just anybody. And it was hard because at that point, there was literally like very few people that even were aware that this technology exists. But then I found some hackathons. I joined hackathons and I formed connections. And then eventually I got my first foot in the door as a prompt engineer.
Mhm.
And it was a company called Copy AI. They were one of the first companies to capitalize on the technology. So it was Copy AI, Jasper, and I believe another one called Writer. So these were like one of the first few companies, and that was a contract role. And then ChatGPT came out, and so that contract ended, and then another contract came up, and this time on the marketing and product side for an AI company. And then another contract came up in prompt engineering for an insurance company. Right? So all these contracts were coming up. People were not hiring full time,
Mhm.
but they were hiring for consulting. They were hiring, contracts, and they wanted AI. And I realized, okay, well, it's time to start my own company, my own consulting company. I'm not going to be a 1099, contractor, right? So this is really how Lapis was born. So I started off with offering, consulting and prompt engineering services in the space. And then very soon I realized that in order to be competitive, it's not enough to just do consulting and prompt engineering. You need to really build products.
Mhm.
That's where you need to be competitive. But obviously, I'm not a developer. So, what do you entrepreneurs do when they don't have the skills themselves? They go out and hire people who do, right? So I hired developers, and now I have a team of developers in US and in UK and wherever the talent is. Um, and we build custom AI software. So we do the consulting, and then we were doing custom AI software. And then after we had done some projects, it occurred to me that that also wasn't quite enough, because what I had noticed is that adoption wasn't sticking. And the reason that adoption wasn't sticking is because you could have the best strategy in the world,
Mhm.
you could have the best software in the world. But a lot of the use cases that we were building for were internal use cases for employee use, not just external products, although we did external customer facing products as well. But for internal use, you really need to make sure that your employees are using the products correctly and that what you're building is aligned with the company goals.
Mhm.
Just like you said, and when you opened up the podcast, right? A lot of companies are like, let's throw AI on it, right? But like, why? Like, what is it doing for you? Where's the ROI in this? And so what you need here is coaching, is you need to train people on how to use AI properly and to make sure that you're using it for the purpose that it's built for. And this is the third service that we now started offering. So whether it is off the shelf tools, ChatGPT or any of the thousands of tools available out there, or it's something that we build custom, we now do AI coaching. And that is absolutely critical to our success.
Mm. There's a huge amount in there from watching all the layoffs at Google and Meta and everything else to sort of get into where you are now. So, and it's literally only been a couple of years. So, huge congratulations on where you are now. But
Yes, yeah.
it's hard to remember a time when OpenAI and ChatGPT didn't exist really. But obviously, it's a new thing. So, but when you go and talk to businesses or people in general, I guess, most people nowadays will have heard of AI. A lot of people hopefully will have used a large language model, whether it's Gemini or Perplexity or OpenAI or whatever. And so they might think, oh, no, it's okay, we use AI. How do you explain to them what AI actually is? And I guess more to the point, what AI potentially gives them?
It depends on who I'm talking to.
Mhm.
So you kind of have to meet the person where they're at.
Yeah.
Right? I'm talking to my grandma, for example, right? When I was explaining it to her, because I did teach my grandma how to use ChatGPT for writing in Russian, and for adapting it to her, different styles. I explained to her that it's a computer program, very simply, right?
Mhm.
So that she could understand that it's not a live creature, which a lot of people, believe it or not, out there that have are non-technical really do think that like there's some sentience to it or something like that, right? Um, that it's not it doesn't just like automatically do things on its own unless you give it some kind of instructions, right?
Mhm.
You have to guide it in some way, right? So you have to. It depends on who you're talking to, right? So if it's someone that's very very new, like a grandma, that is how I would explain it. That it is a computer program, but it still needs instructions from you.
Mhm.
Um, I often tell people to think about it like a very smart assistant, right? An assistant that you hire, junior employee. Um, it is only as good as the information that you give it. So just like a junior employee, it will depend on how well you train your employee. If you give your employee bad training or incomplete training, what can you expect from them?
Yeah.
It is not a senior employee. It is not your CMO, right? So don't treat it as such. AI is getting to be very, very good, even with agents, for example, that can do autonomous work. But even with agents that can do autonomous work, you need to know what good looks like because you have to be able to verify their output. So if you are creating, let's say, a doctor agent, for example, right? But you have no idea about, medicine, right? You're me. I mean, I have some idea about medicine, and because I come from a Jewish family, and so it's like badgered into your head, from the day you were born. But like realistically, I don't have medical training, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I would not know, the chemistry behind like how certain drugs maybe interact with each other. For example, I don't understand, I don't know nuances of various diseases, right, etc. Um, I am not qualified to see are those good outputs or not good outputs. I don't
Mhm.
know. I'm not the expert, right? So I cannot just build an AI doctor and expect that it's going to work because I am not the expert to validate. that that information is accurate. So if I have a client who is in medicine, they will need to make sure that somebody, a human, can validate that the outputs are correct. Right? So this is how I would always recommend people think about it, that you still, till this day, we still need a human in the loop to make sure that the outputs are correct. Because yes, AI, it makes mistakes. It is not infallible, right? Just like junior employees make mistakes and senior employees make mistakes. Think about,
Tell me
right?
about it. Yeah.
Think about, let's if going, sticking back to medicine, for example. So in hospitals for surgery, I forgot exactly what that protocol is called, but when at least in the United States, I don't know about UK. I assume UK also they have some version of this. Before surgery starts, like everyone has a checklist of
Yeah.
like what we need to do, right? Like we're making sure we're operating on the correct body part because this has happened that people
Yeah.
have operated on the wrong body parts,
Hmm.
right? So now everyone goes through a checklist to make sure that we are doing blah, 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 blah. And that this is the medication and that, this is the surgery that needs to happen, right? So it's like the same exact thing with the AI. You need to validate that the output is correct. Where a lot of companies go wrong is they just trust the AI to do its thing and then like walk away and that's all it is.
Yeah.
La la la. Right? And then they wonder like why this stuff fails. So here you go.
That's a really good way of explaining it. And I think the something I was going to say, and you took the word out of my mouth, was infallible. And I think a lot of people think, well, AI, just put AI in and it just does it. But exactly as you said, I wouldn't give my junior employee just out of college or high school or something to do, and then yeah, send it out to the client. It's fine
Right.
without checking it or just double checking it, whatever. So it's interesting that we expect this system to do that. So, but when you walk into a business, and I guess no business is typical, are there similar tasks that you see employees doing now that AI can successfully automate?
Oh yes, absolutely. So we have identified like three main areas
Hmm.
of tasks that can automate. And so back of napkin, math, roughly 30% can be automated. So approximately 10% goes toward what I call looking for your keys, right? Which is, it's like, where is this document? Where is that document? Hey,
Yeah.
we did this thing for this client back in like 2022. Do you remember what that was? And how much did we spend? And that file is here. And can you and that email I sent, right? So much time gets wasted on this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of time, right? So information search
Hmm.
in there I would add some amount of essentially Google searching, right? I would put that in there as well. So look, like the looking for your key stuff is in there. So FA, you can think of it as FAQ or
Hmm.
and that. um, AI is there. So RAG systems, retrieval augmented generation, where you load all of this content into not you're not giving it to AI, you're putting it into a database, right? And then you build a mechanism to go retrieve this information that the
Hmm.
AI then looks at and provides an answer. Right? So this way you're minimizing the hallucination because you're not training the AI on this information. You're not right. Think about it like Control F. That's like the
Hmm.
the way to think about it, right? So it's also known as similarity search. So that's RAG, retrieval augmented generation. So we build a lot of these kinds of systems. This is very common. So that's about 10%. Then approximately another 10% is admin tasks.
Hmm.
workflows that can be automated. So this is anything from, think of the copy paste stuff, okay?
Yeah.
Stuff that we all have to do, but like nobody was actually hired to do. Nobody went to college for copy paste, right?
Mm.
Or finding, or the email stuff and updating a project board, right? Or filling out forms. You
Hmm.
see this a lot in finance and medicine and insurance, right? Form filling. So this is all like admin stuff. And then the final and there I would probably put things like reporting, right? Maybe like deeper research, right? So that's admin stuff. But I think reporting is really a big one because that those are repetitive, and that
Yeah.
takes up a lot of time.
Mm.
But we'll call it, and I say, why I say 10% is because realistically it's more, but if I say more, like companies will get scared, But so we'll keep it very conservative and we'll say 10%. And then another last, 10% is role specific tasks.
Hmm.
Every single role has something that is repetitive in their specific workflow, right? So for a data analyst, it can be again reporting, maybe research and reporting of some kind, right? For maybe for VA it's emails, right? For whatever that task is. So there are role specific tasks for every single role, that and it's approximately at least 10. When I say approximately, or it's at minimum realistically 10% that we can automate. Taking all of that together, you have at least 30% of essentially busy work that we
Mm.
all do that we were not hired for. Realistically, most of, at least most of us, right? Most people with, in white collar jobs, um, we're not hired for, that they don't want to do, that very few people find rewarding, right? That AI can take over.
Hmm.
That stuff AI is really, really good at. And with proper systems, proper tools, whether they're off the shelf or built custom, that it depends on the company needs, budgets, etc.
Mm.
But with proper tools and proper training, very doable.
Mm.
Um, then there are tasks where AI is not great, right? And that's things like management, uh, sales, forming relationships, right? Um, Creativity as a source. When I say as a source, because AI can do things like writing and
Yeah.
art,
Yeah.
right? But creativity as a source where the ideas should come from you. That's where
Mhm.
you get the best outputs from AI, not just otherwise you get AI slop, and just looks generic. So um, those a lot of the stuff that in the past was considered as soft skills, okay, are actually really, really important, and really important for the company to succeed and to move forward. And here AI does not excel, at least not yet. I don't know, maybe in the
Yeah.
future, who knows,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, anything is possible. Like
Mhm.
there's things we didn't know AI could do, but this is what I see right now. So the human skills are very critical, and I think are critical for people to develop and for companies to invest in and to develop. And
Mm.
don't try to replace that human element, those human components. Don't try to replace that. AI is going to fail there miserably. Don't try to replace the human in the loop. AI is going to fail miserably. And do not try to AIify your entire operation overnight. You will fail miserably.
Yeah.
And that's why 95% of projects fail. Like this, like it's insane. I mean, the statistics, they change like study to study, but like it's somewhere between like 88 and 95. I think the latest study I saw was at like 95%,
Mhm.
because the companies, they will try to do their AIify their entire operation overnight, and by that time, like, the technology has changed. you know they also do it in very controlled experiments instead of like dealing with the messy reality of real life, right? So when, let's take a hospital, they will build for the um, you know office, right, with like 10 super enthusiastic employees interested in using AI, not for the nurse in ICU who is
Yeah.
typing with two fingers on
Yeah.
like 3 hours of sleep,
Yeah.
and machines going off everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? That is not the environment in which they built the systems. So, of course, when they try to roll it out, it fails.
Mhm.
When you need to, and this is what we do. We go to speak with executives, sure, to understand what their goals are, what their budgets, right. But then you have to actually go to the field and speak with the end users and see their workflow and what constraints they are operating in their environment, because those two are going to be two completely different things. And when developers build, they don't consider those real life constraints because they are not provided with those
Mm.
by executives, because
Yeah.
executives are not thinking about that. They're just thinking like, well, I'm here sitting in the, behind my computer. Hey, like, and so, like, or at least not all. Maybe it's not fair to say that all executives are like that. That's not true. Not all executives are like that, right? That's why you have the 5%. The 5% that succeed, right, do have those considerations. Everyone else isn't thinking about that. You have to consider your end users. You go to a dev shop is going to say, what's your product requirement? Most companies have no idea. At Lapis, we will figure out your product requirement with you, and then we will train your users on how to use it.
So many questions. The and that reminds me, and it must remind you as well. But I used to be a consultant, gosh, back in the day, for years and years, and so often, obviously, we'll be hired by the executive. A $80 million contract. You just need to go and do this, this, and this. And our big thing is we would always spend 95% of our time with the team, actually with the working in the business, doing the business things or whatever. And 99% of the time there were things the executive just weren't aware of. No, not because they didn't want to be aware of it, just because that's just not how things work.
It's just
And
not how
so
they
if
are.
we
Exactly.
change this, then it means that can't happen, and then that can't happen. And if you
Yep.
change that, it means that either you're breaking the law, or you're not fully staffed, or whatever, or you're going to
Right.
lose money.
Right. Right.
It's like, oh yeah, we never realized that, and that's the big thing I think with AI. The AI in itself, you, and you said it very clearly. You can't just go into a business and say, right, here's your AI that'll fix everything. It's you've got to almost fix everything first, and then bring AI in to provide the time saving and the productivity gains and all those things. And that's what I was going to ask, I guess. If it's possible to automate, and you can debate that number, but it's the 30% of general tasks. Do you find some businesses that have 100 employees think, great, we can get rid of 30 people? Or do you find people think, great, we're going to save people a day and a half a week, and then that will allow them to do X? But I guess you need to train them on, well, what will you be doing
So
in the extra day a week?
a lot of businesses do start thinking, oh great, I can just get rid of 30 people. And that is a
Yes.
horrible thing to think,
Yeah.
and a horrible thing to do. So when we go in, we always say, like, do not fire your employees. That is not the goal of AI, and
Mhm.
this is like not our formal recommendation at all. The goal is to save your people time, right? That is how you get your ROI from AI. You save your people time so that they can focus on tasks that drive your bottom line. Because right now, your people are overburdened with all this busy work. that we talked about,
Yeah.
instead of doing the work that they are hired to do, the stuff that does drive your bottom line. Okay. So don't fire your employees, because what happens when you fire your employees? You still have a bunch of projects, a bunch of tasks that are up in the air, and then
Mhm.
who takes them over? So now
Mm.
you're overburdening the rest of the people that don't necessarily have knowledge of all those projects and all those tasks. Then you have people who are now seeing all of these layoffs, right? And now they're worried, oh, am I next?
Yep.
So they're out now probably looking for work, or mentally checked out, depressed,
Mhm.
like sad, etc., right? Really stressed. Company morale goes down. So they're not really in it anymore for you. They're no longer loyal to your company. They are no longer interested in doing their best work. At best, they are scared of losing their job. At best.
Yeah.
At worst, they are already checked out, looking for a different company to work at.
Mm.
Right? They're already interviewing at your competitors. This is what's happening. So do not fire your employees. What instead you want to do is you want to be transparent with your employees. So you say, we are going to bring in this AI system that is going to replace this task for you. For example, document search. Oh, there's my cat.
Mhm.
Uh, that is going to replace document search. And then that is aimed to free up, let's say, 2 hours a week. In those extra 2 hours a week, she just wants to be up there. In those extra 2 hours a week, you will be expected to take on this extra task,
Mhm.
right? That is maybe more rewarding, more interesting, or whatever,
Yeah.
more productive for the company, right? More beneficial for the company, for the employee, etc. Um, Involve the employee, maybe even ask them, what task would you like to take on? Maybe get them involved, right? That is how you reduce AI resistance, because people resist AI. Employees will resist AI. A lot of them really do resist AI because they are afraid that AI will take their job. And so they say, oh, I'm just not going to use it. And I am going to say AI is useless. That way it can't replace me. Okay. So you
Yeah.
want to reduce as much as possible. You want to get rid of that resistance. And the way to do it is through transparency.
Mm. And I mean, that there's so many lessons going back in history of how this happens, whether it be the industrial revolution, whether it be automating agriculture, all of those things that people thought, oh my goodness, this plow is going to take me out of my job because I had horses and I did it manually, and it's all these things. And I think then it very much was the sort of landowner or business just demand a thing and just got rid of people wholesale. Whereas now you hope businesses are a bit more thoughtful. There are particular. So I've got an 18-year-old daughter and a 16-year-old son, and you've got a young son, so goodness knows what the world will be like when he's 18.
Well,
But for my children, I certainly wouldn't recommend my children become analysts, low level legal support, junior accountants, all those things. You've got to think things that are, as you said, repetitive, data heavy, that you do the same thing each quarter, each week, whatever. You got to think those roles become less attractive. So what do you think? And maybe this is not a fair question. What do you think the skills are that individual employees need today, so they become almost valuable in an AI enabled company?
well, they definitely need AI skills.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What are AI skills then? Is that
So
understanding the prompts? Is that understanding how to?
absolutely prompting,
Okay.
yeah. And we do offer coaching to
Mhm.
help people learn how to prompt. So absolutely, you need to learn how to prompt. The second thing is understanding the various tools out there.
Yeah.
ChatGPT is just one. Right? There are thousands of tools out there. So knowing when to use each tool,
Mm.
also understanding the even within the chat area, right?
Mhm.
Like, when is ChatGPT good to use? When is Gemini? When is good to use? When is Claude good to use? What are the limitations of AI?
Yeah.
So, what are for something that's custom, for something that's off the shelf, right? Um, how do you, even just basic things like making sure that you have the data training turned off, so that you're when you are talking to it, uh your sensitive information is not being they're not training on your sensitive information,
Mhm.
right? So those basic security features are already in place, right? Then certain things like people don't know, for example, if you use ChatGPT with documents, like more than half of the time it does not read the document. There's other tools out there for that. It's like
Yeah.
Gemini is much better if you need to use documents. Claude, better if you need to use documents. Not as good as Gemini, but still,
Mhm.
quite good. um so these kind of nuances you need to learn, because you can potentially be making huge mistakes if you're using the tools in your company, right? You upload a document, you think it read it. Guess what? It didn't read it.
Yeah.
It pretended to read it, like half the time, and it
Mm.
will convince you that it read it, but it really didn't. This is a very well known issue. They're trying to fix it, but until they actually introduce the real, like, citation feature, where you can go and click and validate to see,
Yeah.
where the answer came from within your own document, you
Mhm.
don't actually know that it has been fixed, right?
Mm.
um, so, when we build systems, we ensure that that citation feature is in there, so that you can validate the output, right? But you have to know these things. This all comes with AI literacy, right? Um, then on the creativity side, like, which tools are out there that can help you do your job faster, right? If you're doing design, if you're doing, knowing that. Um, how to not sound like AI.
Yes. I know when you go to LinkedIn now, I think 95% of the posts are AI
Yes,
written
they
posts.
are. They are, and
Um,
it's really bad.
yeah.
It's not good, and if you don't realize that it's happening, then you will be perceived as inauthentic.
Yeah.
People will not want to engage with you, right? Like, there are a lot of real risks here.
Mm.
So, certainly AI literacy. But outside of AI literacy, we talked about human skills, right?
Mhm.
So communication is very critical. Interpersonal communication. Um, if you're, skills like sales, for example, anything in that nature, anything client facing, right, is, I think, going to be highly rewarded. If you're at the intersection of those two, if you have, AI knowledge and you have some customer facing knowledge, that's a very rare find for companies. So companies are absolutely going to adore, or, they're already, like, really rewarding these types of roles that I see
Yeah.
emerging. And these roles are paying very well. But, and again, this comes back to interpersonal skills,
Mhm.
right? So these, um, management, right? So, leadership, team leadership, right? Team leadership doesn't necessarily mean like, hey, I'm the leader, right? But it's, enabling your team to
Yeah.
succeed, right? So how do you do that? So these things are really important. Um, building trust with coworkers, building trust with clients, building trust with your audience. These things are very, very important to know.
Yeah.
And then understanding things like understanding the business, understanding the audience, these things are very important. Like, why, like, so many people that I talk to that work in a company, but they have no idea what the company does. Right? Or like why do they do it? Or like, how is the company doing? Is the company doing well? Like, go figure that out. You should know that. You should know these things. So being attuned to the company, it doesn't have to be, you can figure this out by talking to people and forming connections within people. So human connection, I think, is going to be critical. This is not to say be political. I'm not saying, like, sometimes people hear human connection, they think, oh, you want, like, I should be political. No, it's not about political. It's about under literally genuine human connection. And I know a lot of people are remote, and that's okay. Try to schedule like coffee chats with
Yeah.
people, right? Or before you get on, when you're in a meeting, let's say there's a Zoom meeting, just like talk about the weather for like 2-3 minutes. That's
Yeah.
it's all it takes. A little bit of warmth will go a long way. And in those 2-3 minutes, maybe you will learn something other than the weather.
And the first thing we talked about today was the snow.
Anyway, yes, it was.
I got to know lots about you in the first 5 minutes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, no, that is super interesting, and I think, because I think one of the things that I think maybe surprised some people about particularly large language models is that, and that's why perhaps people almost embed a personality on them, because generally they want to please. And they'll sort, and I'll ask them to do something, blah, blah, can you provide me 2,000 words on so and so? Copy and paste, it's 400 words. How many words is that? 2,000. Are you sure? Okay, it's 400. I'll go back and do it again. It comes back 600 words. If you can't do it, tell me. But then eventually, like the 10th iteration down, I've got better at the prompts now. It's been my fault. The 10th thing down is like, yeah, I can't actually do that. I should have said that in the beginning. Yeah, so almost you almost want to program in honesty, really. But I think one of the challenges. So when I started work, it was everybody used Excel, Word, PowerPoint. That's what we all use. So we all use it. Everybody's a standard thing. It was all standard. You learned it, and that was it. Whereas now with AI, I guess there's so many things to learn. So do you think we'll get to a place where most businesses use custom AI and work with yourself and develop something for their business, or we'll end up with 5 or 10 tools that everybody uses?
I think it's all gonna like depend on the business.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just so many tools out there. Like so a lot of what we do is we will implement tools for
Yeah.
companies, right?
Hmm.
That's a big part of what we do. So we do implementation, custom software and coaching, um, because it's not always necessary to build something custom.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of really great stuff out there that we can implement off the shelf, right? And then as companies begin to implement stuff, then at some point down the line, they might realize like, oh, I actually have, like a ton more data than like
Hmm.
the tools out there can handle.
Yeah.
Or I have like a certain regulatory, requirements that I need to abide by,
Hmm.
that maybe some of these tools like aren't great with.
Hmm.
Or maybe I have some security like extra security requirements. Like, a
Yeah.
lot, a lot of these tools you can implement them in a secure way, but I have some like extra requirements, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
um I want to anonymize my data, for
Hmm.
example, right? For like a lot, like it just, it's so specific to the company. But then other like small businesses will say like, I don't care, like I'm perfectly fine paying, like 20-50 bucks a month per person. I only
Yeah.
have, like 50 people or
Hmm.
5 people. I don't need to spend like 50,000 or 100,000 or 200,000 on custom software,
Yeah.
or even millions in some cases, depending on the complexity, right? Because
Hmm.
custom builds depend on complexity. And then
Hmm.
you have to also, like, there is a maintenance component to it as well. If you don't have an IT department, then you need to like pay somebody essentially to
Hmm.
maintain it. You don't just like build it and then let it go.
Yeah.
Right. It's not as much, to maintain it as it was a few years ago, but there is still a cost to it,
Hmm.
nonetheless, that you need to think about, right?
Yeah.
So if you're like a 5-person company, then maybe custom software isn't for you. Maybe it is.
Hmm.
I've had a client who's a solopreneur that wanted an AI built, and we did it, and this is now like a product that this person is selling, right? So I don't know. Like it all is just really depends on the company.
And I think the benefit of working with you is that you do the looking and searching for them. It's not like they don't have to go to somebody in IT or just find us the right AI solution. Somebody in IT that's been, I don't know, looking after the server. It's like, okay, I'm going with you. So I know you have to go, but I have one really, really just quick last question, if that's okay.
Sure.
I just want to, so obviously AI is so dominant in the news. There are lots of scare stories, lots of positive stories. How do you personally stay grounded? How do you look after and nurture your own mental well-being?
Um, I do breathing exercises.
Hmm.
So there's breathing, there's different kinds of breathing exercises. There's deep breathing, resonance breathing. So definitely breathing exercises help. I try to go for walks. Now it's too cold to go for a walk,
Yes,
but
negative
when it's
prognosis.
not -20 outside,
Yeah.
or at least it feels like -20, I don't know what the real temperature is
Mm.
there. I try to go for a walk 20 minutes a day. And, you know, my kid, make sure that I devote some time, to playing with him, spending time with my kids, spending time with my husband. They, can drive me crazy, but also keep me grounded at the same time.
Yeah, it's hard to be thinking of AI stacks and things when you've got a sort of 3-year-old or 4-year-old demanding breakfast or brunch or want to play or whatever. So yeah,
But at the same time, like I'll come out, sometime after like a tough meeting, and I'll see him, because I work from home, and I'll see him, and he's just like giggling, and like that really does like rejuvenate,
absolutely.
right?
Very catchy.
So that certainly helps. Yeah.
Mhm. Well, thank you so much. You've given a huge amount there, so I need to listen back to understand it all. But yeah, I'll get this out as soon as I can. So you've done a fabulous thing in such a short period of time.
Thank
You should be
you.
incredibly proud. You've done something really special. So congratulations.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. All right. It was so wonderful speaking with you. Thank you for having me on the show.
Pleasure.